Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPCL, has launched a new grade of crude called NEMBE, which says is particularly suited to the European market. Nigeria, one of Africa's top producers of crude oil, has for many years struggled with declining production and disruptions to supply due to unrest and oil theft. NEMBE is similar to Nigeria's other distillate-rich grades such as Forcados, Bonga, and Ejina. Now, according to the state-owned oil firm, the low-sulfur grade commands a premium to the global Brent benchmark and is a good candidate to compete with Brazilian and Azeri crude grades for European refiners. The production of NEMBE is currently around 50,000 barrels per day, but the NNPC is aiming for a rise to 80,000 by the first quarter of next year and 150,000 barrels per day by the start of 2025. Now, to discuss further on this, I am being joined on the news by energy consultant and analyst Seun Dania. Good morning, Seun, and thank you for joining us on the news.
Hi, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So we actually understand that the first cargoes of NEMBE were sold in October, and that consists of 950,000 barrel shipments to France and also the Netherlands. Now, considering that on the CBN's website, a barrel of crude sells at $91.89, is it possible that the windfall will ease Nigeria's revenue shortfall and also save the Naira?
Yeah, it's critical to also know that relying solely on oil revenue right now, it's not a sustainable economic strategy. So even though, yes, we're able to export right now from the NEMBE Creek, Nigeria still needs to diversify its economy and develop other sectors, such as our agricultural sector, manufacturing, technology, mining, in order to also, achieve any sustainable economic growth. Let us also remember that there's a lot of security challenges, but this is supposed to be a normal thing. We're not supposed to be celebrating this because Nigeria is supposed to be exporting crude oil on a daily basis. The challenges we are facing, of course, insecurity, pipeline vandalization, and all of these things are things that the government also needs to take very seriously so that we can actually reap the benefits of the oil sector and then, like I said, diversify to sustain the economy better.
All right, Shaon, now still talking about sustainability, ITO E&P executives and also NNPCL stakeholders actually highlighted the unique selling points of the NEMBE crude oil grade as having an API of 29, low sulfur content, and also low carbon footprint due to flare gas elimination. This, they say, is perfectly fits the required spec of major buyers in Europe. How sustainable is this?
I didn't hear you very clearly. Please, could you come again slowly?
Okay, what I said was ITO and E&P executives and also the NNPCL stakeholders highlighted the unique selling point of the NEMBE crude oil grade as having an API of 29, low sulfur content, low carbon footprint due to flare gas elimination. And this, they actually say, fits the spec of, most of the European buyers. How sustainable do you think this is?
So if I get it clearly, you're asking about sustainability, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I think Nigeria need to, in order to make sure that this is not temporary, we need to invest in, E&P, exploration and production. Nigeria needs to allocate resources. The states needs to take charge of that sector. We understand that, yes, there's a lot of private sector participation that is required, but, the stake that is owned by the federal government through NNPCL needs to be taken seriously, and a lot of investments need to go there because oil is, as you can see, it's one of the major revenue sources for the country. So the government needs to, take charge of our fate collectively. And, for us, we can't keep hammering over it again and again. Adding value to those petroleum, to crude oil, to get the refined petroleum products actually is what will give us the best return on investment. So the government needs to, work with all the refining companies, invest in refining infrastructure, to process the crude oil, turn them into valuable products. And we, of course, like we have discussed earlier on, diversify the economy is very, very important. And the government needs to get trust in order for people to want to come into the country to invest money in whatever sector. We need to be able to promote transparency and accountability. There was a time when the NNPC was publishing reports on a monthly basis. Those kind of things encourage investment. So I believe that. And lastly, address the security challenges, because the security challenges are the major concerns. We need to strengthen the security measures to protect all of our oil and gas infrastructure, from vandalism, theft, and internal sabotage.
All right, you talked about the security challenges. I was just about to ask, you a question on this, but is it possible that these security challenges that you actually talked about, talking about crude theft, attacks on pipelines and all that, is it possible for those challenges to have been prevented?
Oh, sorry, it's not very audible.
You talked about the challenges, that's facing, that's facing our crude. Talking about vandalism, crude oil vandalism, and also theft. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's.
All right. So still talking about some of these. Yes, some of these challenges that might stem from the production of NEMBE, that's also, that we also see, going on at the moment. I was asking if you think these challenges could have been prevented in any way.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely the government has been working on, securing our pipeline, securing all the oil infrastructure. I believe that, we've seen records. We've seen, news headlines and of course, videos showing recorded successes from the Tantita security services and even from the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Army, the Joint Task Force. I believe there's a lot being done. So yeah, it's one of the wins for the government, but in order for us to foster further development and investment within that sector, it needs to be like I was thinking, transparency is very, very important, Like even when the Tantita security services intercepted a particular vessel, there were still a lot of questions. How did that vessel get into the Nigerian waters? How come that vessel they said has been seized at some point? How it come is still operating? So many of all these questions need to be answered. I mean, not for the public, but within the government, in order for us to be able to ensure that our security is top notch.
All right, so just before we go, Shaon, now Germany and EU are pledging investment in the sector. One would actually think that this step would be hastened, but yet nothing has been signed to boost exploration or even refining. Is it that the sector is not attractive enough?
The sector is very attractive, but if we look at go back in the Nigerian oil history, so now we won't see that a lot of the IOCs, international oil companies, are diversifying. They are living onshore, not because it's not profitable, but they are giving it. It creates an opportunity for our local companies to play, but because of the high level of insecurity, the high level of kidnapping, the serious cost, for managing, community issues. A lot of the businesses are leaving. Some of them are selling and going away. Sometimes because even quite a number of even the local producing companies have reached tank top. Tank top meaning they produce so much crude oil, pipelines have been vandalized. They are not able to inject their oil to get to the terminals for export. So they just build a little bit of storage, and the storages are full, right? So oftentimes they secure investments through debts, which come at high interest, locally, which they need to be paying and servicing on a monthly basis. And if they are not selling their crude stock, if they need to shut down their plants, it just signals bad business. So evidently, it's very attractive, but these security challenges, makes a serious consideration where people have to make a business case either to invest in Nigeria or to go elsewhere.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Seun Dania, for joining me on the news and discussing this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here once again.